social media, then PlayStation and games, able to speak to so many people, but you actually have no real connections.
People nowadays more than ever are starting to feeling isolated and facing issues or facing problems of feeling invisible.
You'd always point to the elderly, wouldn't you, really? You'd say 70s and 80s are the most lonely, but actually now it's completely flipped. The problem that people have got now is they're chasing validation from people they don't even know.
You stop posting for yourself and start posting for others. You're viewing everybody else's best self, which prevents you from then wanting to show your true self, which means that you pretend to be somebody else.
That IT lesson changed my life.
Just one funny joke away from a friend. Would you say that you are lonely or have periods of feeling lonely?
To be honest, I can actually say quite confidently, actually, that when I was at school, I used to feel fairly lonely. This sounds like, and it's funny now reflecting back, because obviously I've managed to forge relationships and get friends and be in a relationship and move out and gone down that road now a lot better than I probably was able to when I was younger. But I think having lived both sides of the coin, and I think especially at a younger age, I think people do feel lonely when they're at school, because it can seem like you've got everyone around you, like in a big web where you got friends at school that you talk to, and then social media, then PlayStation and games, and you're kind of able to speak to so many people, but you actually have no real connections. So it's almost like, you could look at it and say, well, you might have 10,000 followers or 10,000, whatever you want to call it, but actually have zero connections.
Yeah, I agree. It's a problem facing school more than anything, where people are feeling very much unheard. And do you think it's a problem with the schools? Do you think it's a problem with parents? Do you think it's a problem with the teachers? Where is this? What could be done at schools, and where is the problem lying, essentially, where people nowadays more than ever are starting to feeling isolated? And the reason this has sort of come about, this episode, for me anyway, is just more the fact that we're hearing so much about people facing issues or facing problems of feeling invisible, not worth anything to anybody, that nobody's interested in what they have to say. And it's this sad place that we've sort of found ourselves in now, where everybody is, I don't know, it's a bit of a cliche, ironic thing now, where we're all, like you've said, following each other, but there's no real connection.
Yeah, I mean, young people are at statistically the most lonely. So, back only probably decades, really, you'd always point to the elderly, wouldn't you, really? You'd say people in their 70s and 80s, coming towards the end, are the most lonely. But actually now it's completely flipped, and it's the age group from 16 to 24 that are the most lonely, because I think they get such dopamine hits, and they're just from social media and quick fire videos and YouTube and TikTok and like blah 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 blah, and it's just constant dopamine hits, and it's so easy, you don't have to put much effort into it, whereas to actually build relationships is harder. And if you've not had to do that your whole life, you're more likely to end up in a place where you feel like you're isolated rather than that you've got actual connections with people.
So does this come at a cost of people's inability now to deposit into their relationships and into other people, because there's such an instant gratification now? So it again stems back from more towards instant satisfaction, likes, comments, shares on a post. People are uploading and looking for that validation elsewhere on social media, and they're not doing enough to deposit into the friendships that they have in real life, which then have a real ROI, which is having a friend. And a friend is someone that you can confide in. A friend is someone that you can be yourself around. A friend is someone that you can help and also receive help from, and have a sort of relationship with, like, a partnership with, is really the one side of it. And obviously relationships as well really offer a similar format, but with a romantic twist to it. I think it's a shame, but that is to me, what is happening is now there is essentially a lack of want or willing for people to deposit into those friendships and connections.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been fairly lucky in, well, I suppose partly it's luck, but I do think because we didn't have that generation or that, the Instagram, it was kind of just coming out. Like we only really just had Facebook and MySpace, and it was kind of like
BBM.
Yeah, BBM and
MSN.
MSN. And like all these older school, but you had to know the person to really connect with them. You had to be friends. You didn't really see anything other than your friends, and your friends were people you did know in real life first. You didn't just go around like adding hundreds of people on a random. I might have done later on in life, but like people, you knew them first. So like the problem that people have got now is they're chasing, like we're saying, the validation from people they don't even know. And I even remember, to be fair, like a while ago, where you'd post a photo on Instagram, and again, mate, not even that long ago, but like 10 years ago, and you'd watch like your like counter or whatever.
Put it on the line.
You put it out on the line. And, if your average post got like, I don't know, 100 likes or whatever, 1,000, and you only then got like 50, you'd be like, oh shit, oh God, I bet that was a terrible photo. Maybe I should delete it. Because it's not had validation. And I don't know about you, but I definitely went through a period where it was like, oh, this photo wasn't very good, and you're putting pressure on yourself then.
Yeah, you stop posting for yourself and start posting for others, which is really what it's turned into. But backtracking to you then, and on a personal level, peeling back the layers. Where were you? Where were you at school when you started to notice it, and what do you think was happening when that feeling of loneliness sort of started, and then essentially what did you do about it, and when did you feel like it kind of stopped? What was the cause and what was the remedy?
I think the biggest point was moving from primary school to secondary school, because I had friends, but I wasn't really getting into that secondary school initially. It kind of happened like after, so there was a bit of a like random period of time where like I wasn't sure what school I was going to. So everyone who knew the school they were going to were all in their own groups, and they were kind of, oh, we're all looking forward to next year where we're going to be in secondary school and we do this. And I was kind of a bit on my own, kind of like, I don't even know what school I'm going to go to at this stage. So it's a bit, can't really even be involved in these conversations. And then eventually, but it was only on the last day that I was kind of then involved with that clan for that school. So then they'd kind of started talking, and then I moved, and then I didn't really have that many friends. Like they'd all kind of done their own thing. You'd had summer break and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, and then it was just like a good 6 months easy, I'd say, where I didn't really know anyone, and then ended up being friends with Charles, which we both know, someone that I was then friends with through school. But until that point, like there was some friends I still had from school, but I'd lost connections, then reconnected a lot like later on in life. But yeah, until that point, I was like a plastic bag floating through the wind. Wanted to start again.
Please put Katy Perry on the screen. I never knew that. That's wild. See, that's so funny. But obviously at that point, I was so much younger. I was still where you would have been 10, 11, and I would have been 9. So it's really not at the top of my thoughts at that time.
Yeah, you were still on the finger painting.
So what, for the first period of how long at school did you feel like you hadn't had?
Like a solid 6 months initially, yeah. Like I'd say. Where like it was kind of like you're on your own at school, like there's no one really to sit with, and you kind of just like getting your panini. You just stand outside. but it is true, like a lot of people go through it, but I think until the point where I kind of put myself out there, it's like as if I'm trying to date, and then like started
it's
really
the same thing.
Yeah, well, it is really, and then until you started then trying to be yourself a bit more, apart from being coy and not trying to, you end up doing the opposite thing as what you're meant to do, is by checking yourself and be like, oh God, to make friends, I've got to be really careful what I say and really this, and you end up restraining yourself to such a level where then you don't actually say anything, and then you're then not going to get any friends because you're not talking.
So how did it first, what was the first flickering embers of friendship that
It was
came about with Charles. Then. So how did that happen?
It was in an IT lesson, and can't even remember. I think I just cracked some sort of joke. It was probably terrible back in the time. I couldn't tell you what it was. Obviously, that'd be really impressive. But yeah, like I think he was like the only one that laughed at the joke. And anyway, then like we had to like pair up and do something on the computers, and I was just like, well, I suppose you found me joke funny, so might as well pair it with you. So anyway, it was kind of like along them lines. And then yeah, we sort of was sitting together, and I think we were in the same class or tutor group or whatever it was called. So then we just started. It kind of went from there, really.
Code. I've just thought, how are people going to learn about business if they're not subscribed to the Brothers in Business podcast?
It's a really good point. They're going to need to subscribe.
Hit the button.
Please.
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 Please. Isn't it funny that actually really unraveling that, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, but really just pinpointing and focusing on that story, which is important for people to listen to, because I think we've all become so scared now of reactions and people's judgment of what they might say and how they might say it and what they might perceive us as and whether we're weird and this and the other. But let's be honest, unless you're, and I'm really throwing the fucking net out wide here, unless you're Jeffrey Dahmer and you subscribe to eating humans, there is nothing that goes through your mind that hasn't also gone through somebody else's mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is the reality where any embarrassing thought you've had, any worry or concern or fear that you've had, someone else at some point in time has also had. You know, it's not that you are alone in that thought, but you're also not alone in the thought of, oh, I'm scared to say something, I'm scared to stand up, I'm scared to have an interaction with someone. And a lot of people are, especially in that age when you're in such a really new environment, but also a time of change for anybody, you know, 12, 13 lads, and everybody's growing puberty and his hormones are all raging and things like that. But what's really lovely in that is essentially all it takes is one catalyst to happen. And the reality is, because we are, as you've said, more, let's say, followed, and we have more access to a wider range of people, but we've never been more alone and disconnected from everyone, that everybody else probably feels the same way. And it's actually just sometimes something as easy as a reach out or as a corny joke or just effort. But the point is that effort is required. For the first 6 months, you were on your own, but weren't putting any effort into trying to build or create any new relationships or friendships with anyone. And then all of a sudden, that catalyst took place, and that was the opportunity. And isn't it funny that something as funny as as simple as a joke, well, whether it was funny or not, probably wasn't.
It was definitely hilarious.
Well, it made
one person.
It made one person laugh, or your class maybe is the right person laugh, because if that means you match up on humour, that you're going to be able to have a good conversation. So I think it's just that roll the dice, isn't it? It's try and put yourself out there, but just bear in mind that people are thinking the same as you. People have the same reservations, fears and worries and concerns, and you will eventually meet someone that you can marry up with, but it takes effort. You have to make that first move. And I think that's the problem nowadays, is that everybody thinks like they've got loads of connections or followers or whatever you want to classify them as, but no real friends.
Yeah, and I think people, you can only ever be plugged. You can either plug into the real world or plug into social media. You can only plug into one properly. And people are just constantly plugging into the wrong one. They're plugging into online life, which is only going to get you so fulfilled and stuck up in the rat race of like likes and, you know, followers and all this sort of stuff, and the bad competition. You know, I mean, it's hilarious when you get into a Modern Warfare game and, you know, everyone in the party's hilarious. That, you know, just rinse each other. But, you know, I don't know if you remember that. But, you know, like, I think you got to try and plug out of social media and phones and all this and plug into real life.
I think it's important more than anything when you need a friend. Like, it's great when you said you're on not social, when you're on the Xbox and you're all chilling out and playing in a games lobby and playing FIFA Ultimate Team, or you're playing whatever you're doing, whatever game you're playing, and there's people there talking. But that's looking back at that now. Actually, now I'm grown up, I don't play any of those games anymore. I don't enjoy them, I suppose, but I've got no one to play with. And when you actually look back at it, it turns out that the best thing about those games were the people that you were playing with. And all of a sudden, nobody wants to play them anymore. We're all playing at different times, and then it just fades off and people quit completely. Essentially, the best part of it was playing with your mates, coming home from school, being with each other, like chilling in the playground, and then saying, right, we're all logging on to Call of Duty tonight, and having that time together with your friends. And it goes to show again that it's not really about the activity, it's about the people that you're doing it with. And a lot of people nowadays probably need to spend some more time investing into the actual friendship rather than the activity, and looking at their friend circles and sort of making sure that they understand that it's your friends aren't just people you do activities with or people you do things with. There's more to it than that, and they need to, like you said, be a bit deeper in that relationship. But it's harder at school because obviously, essentially, you don't really know yourself.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's what I found. And until you can find someone to then be yourself around, you're constantly trying to then move with the waves and move with the times and try and be like, oh, well, they found that funny over there, so I'll go and like say that, and they find that over funny, so like, oh, I'll go and try it with them. And you constantly just molding to try and fit a group rather than just being yourself.
And that's another thing with social media is nobody wants to be themselves. Nobody before. Look, I think it's what I don't like to do essentially is just say that everything is now a causation of social media. Every problem that we have is social media, but you can't take anything away from the fact that it's the biggest change to human existence in the world, in human history, really. You know, essentially we are now connected with every single human that has a smartphone and an internet connection. That is just the facts. Whereas before, you wouldn't connect with people who were in other countries. Whereas now you can go on dating apps, set your location to a different country and swipe away. Like, it's mental. Like, that's where you're at now. But because of the social media, essentially, you're viewing everybody else's best self, which prevents you from then wanting to show your true self, which means that you pretend to be somebody else to try and not disappoint other people's expectation of you for being anything other than what you've projected onto your social media, which is a perfected image of you and what you are and who you follow. And you're not being your true self. And then you're not forming real connections with people because you're too scared to be your true self. You're too scared to talk about yourself, what you're interested in, what you're genuinely interested in, what you don't like, what you do like, your music, what you love, what you hate. And again, go back to school was a funny one. We talked about it before. It's like, you know, Justin Bieber coming into the school, and nobody could admit that they like Justin Bieber. Otherwise, they would be, and again, sorry to be, you know, just quoting the sign of the times, but if you were a believer, you were also gay in our school. That was just the reality of it. So you could not admit you like Justin Bieber, because otherwise you would be literally coined as gay at school, which again, as a lad who's 13, 14, is, if you aren't gay, I mean, maybe things have changed in the last 12 years since I was at school, but that wasn't a good thing. Like, you would be getting rinsed for it. And so, yeah, and that must be hard enough for people that potentially were at the time, you know, part of the LGBT community who were struggling with their identity. You know, and it's hard, it's tough. But being your true self is so important. And it's a shame that it's harder for people than ever, or harder than ever for people to not be that self, that true self.
Well, essentially, loneliness is about the equivalent of having 15 cigarettes per day.
It's sad, though, and I can see that probably being the case, because people discount the actual makeup of humans and what we are, which is essentially, you know, skin, bone, hormones, and brain signals being sent from here to our nervous system, blah, blah, blah. But that the hormone side of that is like your serotonin, your feel good hormone, and all these things that are being sort of pumped around your body. And it's like, if you're lonely and you're not getting that serotonin boost from being with your friends, which is what you get a massive boost in all these positive hormones and being around people and working and having a laugh with your mates. It's such a big investment back into your own mental health well-being that you're depositing in having good times and making memories with friends. So I can easily see as to why, if you're doing that and you're lonely, then it's so damaging on so many levels because your body isn't getting what it needs.
Yeah, well, this is it. And, I suppose people that are dealing with it, and apparently we've got 3.8 million people in the UK that would say that they're lonely. So how do these people, given advice, what advice would you give to people to come out of their lonely shell?
Follow what you've said. Follow your story, which is just be brave enough to understand that people aren't going to come. If you're like a hermit living in a cave, people are not going to come to your cave. The party is not going to arrive to your front door saying, let me in. You have to make your way to the party and add something to it and add to people's lives. And I think the quickest way that you can form connections with people is be useful to people and be helpful and be kind and be friendly. Like, that's the easiest and best way straight away.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And, like I know that until I was myself, I suppose, that I wasn't getting anywhere in reality. And it was funny for us because we always had our parents, which were extremely social, and they had loads of friends and loads of people, like with house parties and all that sort of stuff. So it was then quite funny that, again, for me, like when I was going to school, I was a bit like, I don't have any friends. And it's, as I said, it's only funny now because it's completely different. But, like a lot of people still end up in that position, and you just got to, like I say, add to the party. And I know that when you've gone out and like you'll turn up with like friends, or I'm the same, and the minute you turn up with like good energy and everyone's a bit like swarms you to go like, oh bloody hell, yeah, I want to be with that guy or I want to be with that girl, because they're, the life and soul of the party.
And that's easy for people that are extroverted, and some people are just naturally introverted, which is harder. But then you can form your own circle of introverts and look at Stranger Things. And I know it's daft, but you've got a team of introverted nerds, essentially, who love playing Dungeons and Dragons and get into this wild sort of chase of this weird entity, which ended in a really shit way.
Well, don't tell me. I've still not even watched it all.
Right, well, it's your fault for missing out at this point. But essentially, it's like you can surround yourself with kindred spirits, and that's why it's always important to be yourself. Because if you feel like you are pretending to be someone you're not, just to fit in with a group of people, then essentially you're not ever going to be able to derive the dopamine and serotonin from that group, because they're not doing the things or talking about the things that you want to talk about. You're living a lie, really, and that's the saddest thing of all. So it's really important to be your true self, but also never try to be something that you're not, because there's all these influencers nowadays, like the new one that blows my head off is this clavicular.
This
Looksmaxxing drug addicted bellend that's trying to tell everyone to like Looksmax
and bone smashing.
I don't get it. I've not watched enough of it.
Fucking twat.
A
tool.
He's just a strange guy, but he's hiding behind his own insecurities with who he used to be. I saw him do a talk with somebody. It might have been Tate, but and he was talking about how he used to be sort of nervous, and that's why he'd do copious amounts of drugs. And I'm like, because he would never felt good enough. And it's like, that's because he's trying to portray this idea of perfection, and no one's perfect. And
Especially
him. And then he's ended up having a drug overdose, and that's because he's not living true to himself. He's trying to project this perfect image of Looksmaxxing, which, please just tell me, I've never known. I know influencing gets ridiculous at times, but this Looksmaxxing thing, can we all just have a word and stop ourselves?
I mean, the name of it, and then there's all the words as well. I can't even remember half of them, but they're like
mogging,
yeah. And he's just the most monotone guy. He's like, yeah, so I'm Looksmaxxing. I want to do Looksmaxxing, and I don't like to talk about anything but Looksmaxxing. It's just like, Jesus Christ. Like, there is no way in any universe that he's getting to the age of, like, even 30 and not falling apart.
But that's because
he's another one in the 28 club or whatever it is.
But he's one of those. I mean, I wish him well, but his identity is formed around trying to convince people that the only answer is to be perfect from a visual standpoint, and that status is derived from looks and things and not about who you are as a person, which is just wild. And the other thing, it's like you've got then the whole masculinity image, which is for men, where people are essentially finding they're not being able to connect with other men, and they're lonely, and they're not connecting with other men because they're speaking to, or they're watching people like Andrew Tate in the Manosphere, which is the next one, where you've got people like Myron Gaines who's telling you how to be a masculine male whilst holding a fucking poodle and getting his
with a pink
pink bow on, and his missus who's since left him because she thinks he's a tool, and he is. And so like there's this whole just dichotomy now of people saying you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that, and it's like this is how you be a man, and it's like there's no one there's no one size fits all. Like everybody's different, and I think it's just about being yourself and then finding the people that fit your little niche and your own idiosyncrasies and how you feel as a person.
Well, it's like you said, you get pulled from pillar to post. Oh, be like this and be like that and be like the other and be like this and da 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 da. And it's like if you are just moving with the waves, you're moving over here, then moving over there, and rather than just stand still and just say, well, actually, I'll just focus on myself and then be a fun version of yourself, and then let other people come to you.
Just be a good person as well. Like you said, be kind and give to people. And that's the biggest message to share. It's like you don't need to be some steroided up, like absolute roidhead freak.
Well, I
loads
didn't.
Of gear. No, you don't. But you don't need to be like that to be a man. You don't need to have like millions of pounds to be like successful. We did an episode on, riches, and Bob Marley. There was a great interview where he was asked, what is being rich? Is he rich? And he was like, what do you mean rich? Like, well, do you have loads of money?
My name's Bob.
He was like, do you have loads of money? And he replied with like, what? And that makes me rich. Having loads of money doesn't make me rich, sort of thing. And having a purpose and friends and love and family, like that's what makes him rich. And so it was important for people to understand it, because there's so many mixed messaging now. So especially for the younger generation who are feeling, and anybody especially feeling lonely, be yourself. Ignore all these people trying to tell you what you should be and who you should be. Be yourself, and then find people that subscribe to your way of thinking.
And I think a lot of it, and I definitely found it as I got older and kind of experienced more in the world, that I learned more, became more competent in the things that I was doing and learning and whatever it might have been. And as that, I then got more confident, and then I had more friends as a proxy of that. And that, I've not felt lonely for, at least a month. So it's been, but everyone has times where they feel a bit, oh God, this is a bit shit, but that's just normal. But it becomes an exception, not the rule. And I think as you do grow older, you do end up feeling more comfortable in yourself and you feel better for it, but just don't keep turning with the tides and just keep changing here, changing there to fit everyone else. Just find your niche.
The final point that I think if it was restored would have such a massive, profound difference on people feeling lonely and people feeling better in themselves and having a place to go to is the community, and having more of a local community for you to spend time. A lot of the community centres now for children are broken down. I know I was involved heavily into sort of boxing and youth programs where we had so many kids from different areas, different backgrounds that could all come together in a community centre and have a place to actually make friends and have an activity and do something together, and not have any sort of judgment or any form of like, let's say, pressure on actually social situations. They all just came together to perform and compete and box, and or whether it's a different activity, whether it's basketball or sports. I think that community's gone, that local community is massive, and even your local neighborhood and speaking to your neighbors and spending time with them and having people nearby that, again, you can actually look to and go to speak. And it's such a shame now that all of these things have gone. And I don't know whether it's through selfishness. I don't know whether it's through people now not really giving a shit about their local community, their local area, their neighbors. And do you know, genuinely, I find that you go to the, let's say, the lower income areas, and you find that there is still that solidarity, and they are actually still a lot more invested into the community and knowing each other and helping each other out, because they haven't got access to as many resources. And so I think most people, and a lot, so many people go through loneliness. And I think if you were to try and look at restoring, and this is something the government can do, restoring your local area, but equally as an individual, spend more time just being yourself, like you said. But it's about investing and giving back and helping others first before you get any benefit from it, because that's how you build the relationships and the friendships that you need as a person to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's made me think about, fully enough, all the way back to the start of one of the first things with Charles. And he's actually now set up a business whereby he kind of helps, I suppose, really, there would be lonely lads that are kind of probably, in a bit of a bad way. I mean, you know the story better than me, so it's probably better if you say. But, he's now working on trying to turn those people's lives around by teaching them life skills and, I suppose, realistically, how to be competent, make friends, be confident, and all these sorts of things. And he was probably in a similar boat to me, because he didn't really have any friends either at school. So, maybe who knows, there's some subliminal messaging going on.
I think it's just you live through your own experiences. And if it's something where you have felt at a time in your life really lonely and down, and that's where you're the most qualified to help other people within that space. So if you are essentially watching and you've been through a period of loneliness and you've come out of the other side, then remember that it's also your duty to help others find their way out as well, and speak to them and be a cause for good and help, because a lot of people are going through this loneliness epidemic at the minute, where they're not really being themselves. They're not connecting with people properly. They're pretending to be something that they're not. They're listening to the wrong people. They're watching Andrew Tate and thinking he's the Messiah. They're watching Myron Gaines with his poodle and pink bow. And if you're taking any semblance of advice from a guy called Clavicular, you need to give your head a wobble. So be yourself, invest in your friends, invest in people, give back, take a chance, speak to your neighbours, speak to people. It's daunting at first. It gets easier. And remember that everybody else is in the same boat. Everybody else needs a friend. Everybody wants a friend, and you don't have to be lonely. You can just as easily go and find the right people that suit you and your personality and your beliefs and your values. But it takes you being brave enough to go out there and make the first step. And if anybody is interested and needs a friend and wants to reach out, drop us a message. You got all of our socials are all in there, and we're here to help, because like you said, we don't want anybody feeling like they can't reach out or have any hope. And people need hope, especially when they're feeling lonely and they're feeling, on their own. Again, it's them versus the world. If that is the case, reach out. We'll come and send us a message, and we'll come and look after you and get you sent on a fun adventure for the day. Something like that.
Sometimes even a phone call. get someone out of bed and going, oh my God, like, yeah, I can have fun and I can speak to people, you know, all the way back. That IT lesson changed my life.
Just one funny joke away from a friend.
There you go, exactly.
And on that bombshell,
there you go.
thank you very much. Cheers for watching.